Chuck, these honey drippers are still front on us. Show them that we can do this, cause we always do this. Yeah, boy.
Bass, how low can you go? Death row? What a brother, no, once again, back is the incredible.
Welcome to the Rock's Back Pages podcast. I'm Barney Hoskins. I'm on a computer screen with my colleagues Mark Pringle.
Hi, Barney.
And Jasper Merson-Bowie.
Hello, Barney.
And joining us for this episode to discuss his long and illustrious career and all that's new or free in the world's largest archive of music journalism is the great Havelock Nelson. Welcome, Havelock.
Thank you, guys. Good morning or good afternoon to you.
Yeah, we're just into the afternoon bit of the day. I must tell you, Havelock, we've all been practicing the correct pronunciation of your name as opposed to the pronunciation of Havelock Ellis, who was a Victorian eugenicist and pioneer of psychedelic drugs, who I suspect you're not named after. But
no. But I was named after a Havelock, though. Havelock J. Nelson, who's an Irish composer.
Okay.
I was named after him.
Wow.
Because I'm from Guyana, South America. And,
yes.
you know, the whole colonial linkage of Guyana and that part of the world, you know, folks from Great Britain, you know, that part of the globe would come and, you know, kind of enculturate us.
Sure. I hear you've lost your West Indian accent.
Yeah. I mean, it's not gone completely. Because if I'm around my family or some West Indians, it comes out a little bit, you know, some words, or even some words that I say, you know, you would say, he's not from here, you know, but for the most part, it's gone. I was here since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, for all listeners, Havelock is one of the great writers on hip-hop and the co-author with fellow Rock's Back Pages contributor Michael Gonzales of the essential 1991 book, Bring the Noise, A Guide to Rap Music and Hip-Hop Culture. Havelock, you were, as we've just established, born in what was then still British Guyana, but which became independent, I think, in 1966. What are your earliest musical memories as a kid growing up there?
I mean, in Guyana, we had a lot of ceremonial things happening, and we had a police band. We had the couple of other bands, like, you know, marching bands and that kind of thing, horn driven kind of things. And I would always look at the drummer, I would look at the horn players, and they looked so cool, you know, playing music and getting things out of this tube that I was fascinated by all this stuff. And you know, I wanted to, you know, do something around music, but I asked my mom to give me piano lessons. But I was so excited to be around the piano that I didn't take the lessons seriously. I said I could play, you know. So I would have recitals, and I would just do awful. My mom just pulled me from piano lessons, says, you know, you aren't serious, you know. So I settled into writing instead of pop music.
Okay. When and why and how did you come to move to the United States?
My dad was in the United States in New York for a number of years. You know, he kind of came and just just came for opportunity to, you know, make money. And he would always send these great things back for me and the family, clothing, toys. And, you know, he just sort of established a place for us to come because we were working on getting our own, like his green cards to come to America. And it takes a little time. So he got through first and, you know, so he came first and then we followed him a few years later.
Are you worried that if you leave America now, you'll be arrested on return? Or are you a full US citizen now?
Oh, I'm a full US citizen. But I do want to go back to Guyana for, because I'm a city boy, you know, but Guyana has this beautiful, untouched forest. It's the interior of the country. The country's mostly, you know, untouched greenery. And it's kind of disputed with Suriname and Venezuela and those other countries because there's so much richness there that everyone wants it. So I want to go on a trip to the interior of the country. When I was there last time, I was going to go, but it was raining and there's no asphalt or concrete landing strips.
Sure.
It's dirt. So if the plane couldn't land, so I couldn't go. And that happened on 2 trips. So, you know, one day I'll get there and see the great Kite Shore Falls and that part of the world with the red mud and that kind of thing. It's got to be, because I'm a nature boy, so I would love that kind of thing.
So you're a city boy and a nature boy.
Oh, absolutely.
A bit like me.
I'm a city boy by circumstance, but, really the person I am, I would love to be, just walking around barefoot, sand under my feet, some nice sun shining on my face and some waves crashing, along the shore where I'm sitting.
Can I come too?
So what kind of city did you find New York to be when you arrived?
When I first came to New York, the very first day we landed, we got the car from the airport, and my dad, after we took everything out and we went somewhere on the subway, and I'm walking on the street and we're going down. Where are we going? It just seemed kind of like it was so different. I didn't know about subways, so that was like, wow,
Sure.
Trains are down here, and that kind of thing. So I really embraced the city. The city. I love the weather. I love the sights. I love the sounds. It was just a lot of different sounds invading your ear in the city. I embraced it. I love New York. I always loved New York.
Whereabouts in New York?
So much to do.
Whereabouts did you first live in New York?
I lived in Brooklyn. I lived in the areas of East Flatbush. That was my mom bought a home there. And I also lived in Bed-Stuy and Park Slope, which also is going under gentrification and, very expensive homes there. But it's a beautiful area. The block I lived on in Park Slope had this tree, and in the fall, it would blossom. And the entire area would just have this wonderful fragrance.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
What was your first exposure to or awareness of rap and hip hop in New York City, Havelock?
When my family lived in Park Slope, there was a park across the street from me. Well, let me go back further. I think it was in school. There were kids coming into school with these really awful sounding tapes that sounded like they were recorded from outer space or something, but they were like, performances of guys rapping, and they would bring these tapes in and play it on this really, that was the era of the box, I guess, right? So they would put these tapes in, and, the big JVC box, they would just blast these break beats and raps. And then there was one summer where there was a park across the street from where I lived, and I just saw guys coming in, wheeling in some big speakers and, setting up some turntables in front of a little shack and they plugged in, and then they just blasted music. And that was like, wow, this is it. This is hip hop, and, that was the first memory of hip hop. It was just from the park across the street and those tapes. The guys used to say, yeah, man, I went to the Jam last week. Cause I was more homebody than homeboy. So I wasn't going to the jams, so, but friends would come in and say, I went to the Jam and, so-and-so, and, got the tape of it, that kind of thing. And that was really, really cool.
Which year would this have been?
That would be, I guess, maybe 1978.
Right. Just before Sugar Hill Gang released anything. So it was still a sort of underground. It was definitely pre-recorded rap. Yeah, it was. It was breakbeats and and MCs.
Yeah. How long had you been in New York at that point, Havelock?
That was I came in 73, so I guess that would be about 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. It seemed longer, because it felt like I was here for a while, But
yeah.
Well, 5 years at that age does seem a lot longer than it does at my age.
Our age.
Our age. Well, yeah. I mean, Jasper's aging rapidly. Just
going down fast.
1, 2. Are you ready? Yes, y'all. Until the beat starts, stop, y'all. And don't stop. I keep on. The beat is on. And then you just dive. Call on the name.
I mean, the next so obvious question that I'd like to ask you is, what was the first writing of any kind about rap that you recall that made any kind of impact on you?
Well, let me think about that, because I do recall the very first pieces I wrote. I started writing when I went to City College, I now live up the street from City College.
Okay.
Down the hill from City College. So I started writing there. That was my first piece. So the first pieces I wrote was a Donald Fagen review of The Night Fly. And And
one
Marvin
of our favorite
Gaye's
albums.
Oh man, masterpiece.
Great record.
Yeah,
let's just frame that up.
Yeah,
put it on the
no
wall.
No argument from us,
from any of us. Yeah.
And it was Marvin Gaye's "Midnight Love."
Yeah.
Those were my first reviews. And as far as the hip hop stuff, I know the first piece I did for Billboard was on Herbie Loveabout.
Right.
That was, that was really great because I went to Idolmaker Studio and all the artists were there. Kwame was there. Play was there from Kid and Play. Herbie was there, of course. And I met Salt-N-Pepa before that. But yeah, it was great to just be around that young energy. And that's why I liked the era I was writing in, because these guys weren't stars. They were just, they were all just skinny kids just trying to, make a mark and get on BLS, WBLS, and WRKS on the mix shows there. And that was it, man. It was just a wonderful purity to it.
Before you started writing, had you read like Greg Tate, Nelson George, Harry Allen, people like that? Had you read any stuff in The Voice about the hip hop scene?
Absolutely. I mean, those guys were like the I think every writer, you're either influenced by Nelson or you're influenced by Greg, or both.
Or both.
And
right.
Yeah. I mean, the DNAs and everything that we're doing now.
And how did you get your foot in the door at Billboard? And what year was that? Was that 89? I don't know what the first piece was.
I don't
know when it was. I don't know when.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I mean, you probably know better than I do. I mean, thank you for archiving my stuff because it was gone for a bit. So, but no, I was writing for fanzines initially. Black Beat magazine and Word Up magazine, that kind of thing, because there were no real, serious magazines writing about rap or hip hop. And through that, I would be going to events and seeing other writers. And, Nelson would always, he would always say, I thought he didn't like me at first. He'd always just sort of okay, good, whatever, kid. But he came up to me one day and said, I saw a piece you wrote, forgot what it was. He said, I would like you to, Brian Chin, who was writing for his section. He was a dance editor at Billboard. Yeah, but he was contributing to the black section, that he was leaving to go do an A&R gig, and he needed somebody to come in and fill his slot. So he asked me to do it. And I was very, very pleased that he asked me. And the first piece, like I said, was the Herbie Loveabout piece. And we did a lot of things from there. And the rap column, I would do stories for that section and also for the record review section and even in front of the book. And the rap column came a few years after that when they did their research and said, we could support this through advertising and that kind of thing.
Right. You had a desk. You had a desk there, presumably. You had an office. Did you, or did you work from home?
I worked from anywhere. I did have a desk there. I would go in there. It wasn't my desk. It was sort of a, whoever comes in. But I made it mine though, because after a while it was my stuff, my CDs, my papers just piled up all over the place. So it became my desk. And I did go in there a lot because as a writer, I like to move around. I don't like staying in one place. So I would write a little bit at home and then get on the bus and, do some paper edits and then get to the computer at Billboard and, input stuff. And
I've been going through the billboards that we have looking for the rap column and other stuff that you wrote. And it's really fascinating to read because it's such a important time for hip hop where, the fact that Billboard is kind of starting to have to pay attention because it's becoming, obviously Billboard is much more of like a market focused magazine and much more sort of music business insider-ish. But so to have your columns in there talking about the time period in rap and hip hop where it's really starting to grow is just fascinating. So it's great to read those.
Yeah. I just wanted to quote from one of those columns which we're featuring as part of the featured writer section on the homepage, which obviously is about you. And it's from January 1994. And there's sort of bits and pieces of news, but you kind of start off with a bit of sort of op-ed statement here. The mass media is such an unbalanced purveyor of the truth. When it discusses rap, it focuses most of the time on how the former is destroying society with misogyny and violence. Such depictions are flawed. Yes, some rappers can do more to help erase these problems, but they didn't invent them. News reporters need to dig deeper and examine their root causes. And instead of always quoting statistics on black negativity, they should also sometimes point out how much rap and hip hop contributes to the American economy. So I just thought that was, a powerful statement from that period. Did you, at Billboard, did you feel kind of welcome there? Was there any sort of resistance to coverage of rap in the music industry trade Bible that Billboard is?
Not initially. Initially, I wrote whatever I wanted to write.
Yeah.
But I think as gangster rap started to rise up and become more dominant, the editor-in-chief at the time, the late Timothy White, he had a column called Music to My Ears.
Yes.
Where he would speak for the magazine on issues as well as, sort of nominate artists that he thought were, beyond wonderful. And he started doing some stories, some editorials on hip hop, and he wanted that to stand as the magazine's statement on the subject. So there was a little bit of, butting heads there. For example, I wanted to, defend Eminem, but, he had some other opinions about where he was coming from. I wanted to do a big piece on Notorious B.I.G. when he was shot and killed. Yeah. But that was kind of discouraged also because, we wrote about him, and Timothy White has spoken for the magazine. So there were things like that, but they were minor and few. I pretty much did what I wanted to do, and the column was what I wanted to write.
Good. Well, glad to hear that. We'll probably get to Notorious B.I.G. in a moment because we're featuring the interview you did with him when Ready to Die had just come out. But I just wanted to bring in, obviously, the wonderful book, Bring the Noise, that you wrote with Michael Gonzales. And just to ask you, so this is November 91, it's published. Mm-hmm. So it's quite, relatively early in the story of hip hop. How did the book come about? And I guess you were approached because you were at Billboard, or did you pitch the idea to the publisher?
I was approached. The editor we used was Michael Peach, who's gone into a very, very illustrious career in
very
publishing.
Famous editor.
But he was my editor. He was the editor that approached me about doing this book, and he had an idea of doing just a simple book on just from A to Z, the rappers, just a short thing. But I approached Michael because I don't want to do it alone. Writing is a lonely game in itself, and doing a whole book was kind of a thing where I never did it before. And I wanted just some companies just to join this ride, and it was great. It was a great ride. We had so much fun doing that book. Yeah, so Michael Peace had the idea, but we transformed his idea into, more of essays rather than just a book of short entries about every artist. We just chose selected people we wanted to write about, and we drew in the entire culture into those. So we discussed the entire thing, but with the focus being on the artists that we started out, and that was a springboard into discussions about the entire culture.
Jasper, you were having a look at the book yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been going through it a little bit, and it really is more essays than just it's not like an encyclopedia. There's a lot more kind of going into it, and the entry on BDP on Boogie Down Productions begins, "I made up rhymes in dark and scary places," Snap Queen Arthur Rimbaud wrote in his poem Wandering. Although this line was written in Europe during the 19th century, the essence of the text easily applies to the jungle lands of America's chocolate cities, the reluctantly adopted motherlands of Africa's children. These dark and scary places are the ghettos of the New World, with their sprawling housing projects and nodding crackheads, dimming streetlights, and homeless folks sleeping in new-aged underground railroads, deserted subway stations. That's great, and it's a great setup to then go into talking about the whole, Stop the Violence movement and everything that comes out of Boogie Down Productions and KRS-One. And what I like about the entries that I've read is that you're kind of weaving together criticism of the music and analysis of the music and the different rap styles together with the kind of more social commentary aspect. And was that something that you did very consciously when you were putting the book together?
It was just something that came out of the process because, Michael has a certain style of writing and I had a certain style. But, as we wrote the book, the styles sort of fused together. So at the beginning, Havelock did this, Michael did that. But as we went on, sort of things started fusing together. So we sort of borrowed from each other's styles. So no, I mean, it was something that really came naturally. And something that felt very organic. I mean, that's kind of like how we were living, you know? We were, we were living the culture. We were enjoying this music, you know, we weren't just hip hop, because hip hop is really just an amalgam of everything. So you just bring it all in, you know, because everything could apply.
It's very hard to separate hip hop, the music, from the environment in which it emerged and the politics that surround those environments. Mm-hmm. In a way that doesn't apply to most popular music.
Right.
And you could take that back to as far as the Last Poets, who I know weren't technically hip hop, but were kind of, you know, predictors of the form.
Right. They were way deeper, man. They were like beyond. They were beyond rap.
Yeah. But yeah, politics and rap, yeah, hand in hand, I'd say.
Were there times when, like, 'cause not all the entries are necessarily positive about you're kind of doing a survey of the scene at the time in 1990, 1991, and were there disagreements that you and Michael had about, like, you wanted to cover someone positively or you wanted to say something critical of someone, and you had kind of you didn't agree on who you thought was great and who wasn't? Not
at all. I mean, I think everyone that Michael wanted to write about, I'm like, yeah, go for it, man. Everything I wanted to write about, you know, he was like, you know, let's go for it. And we just did it. You know, there was never anything, we had no disagreements on that book. I mean, it was completely, you know, just getting up every day, every night and writing. And, you know, we went through, we just lived. Because at the time I lived in my mother's basement, and Michael moved in there. He lived in Harlem, and he, said, I'm going to just bring my books and, you know, my CDs, and we just, you know, just bunk together and write together. So, you know, I'm like Michael is a late night writer. I go to bed early. So
you took shifts.
Pretty much, because I mean, I would be sleeping, and Michael would be just there working, and I would get up, and, you know, he would be sleeping, and, you know, yeah, so we would take turns, or we'll do it together, you know. So it all worked out, you know.
Great, yeah.
It all fell in place very naturally. There were no disagreements. There were no artistic differences or anything, you know.
Another thing that's great in the book is that you're also highlighting women rappers. I mean, Queen Latifah gets an entry, MC Lyte gets an entry, Salt-N-Pepa get an entry. And in the Queen Latifah part, you write, in the revolutionary universe of current hip-hop, there's enough room for culture critics and leaders from both sexes. If Chuck D can assume the role of rap's Malcolm X, then why shouldn't Latifah model herself after Angela Davis? And I think, like, you're clearly conscious already of that kind of male-female split within rap that still now is kind of pronounced, that it's less common still for women to make it as big as men in hip hop.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough era for women in hip hop. I mean, to fit in, you have to figure out, you have to have a certain look. You have to, you know, it was a tough era because it was very misogynistic and very male driven. That, you know, and to find a place for yourself, if you did it, you were exceptional.
I break into a lyrical freestyle. Grab the mic, look at the crowd and see smiles. Cause they see a woman standing up on her own too. Sloppy slouching is something I won't do. Some think that we can't flow. Stereotypes, they got to go. I'ma mess around and flip the scene into reverse. With what? With a little touch of ladies first.
I wondered what it was like to be at Billboard. And as a matter, when did you leave Billboard? How long was your tenure there?
Man, like I said in the beginning before we were recorded, everything is a blur to me. So I have to go back. As far as dates, I didn't even think about, you know, when I left Billboard. I have to go back and check all that stuff.
No worries. We can probably tell you. We'll be able to tell you.
You're probably better than I do. Absolutely.
What I wanted to ask was it interesting to be the rap editor at Billboard and then to see the emergence of magazines like The Source and then obviously Vibe, XXL and others. The Source in particular I'm interested in because, I mean, Michael Gonzales, who you were just talking about, started writing for them just after Bring the Noise came out. And I wanted to tie this into the interview I mentioned with Notorious B.I.G, where he actually talks about how, he got his break because of a mention in the unsigned hype column in the Source. And that was ultimately how Puffy heard about it. So I'm interested in that kind of relationship between what we loosely or broadly call rap media and the artist, the sort of synergy between the journalism and the artist, and how that struck you while you were at Billboard.
Well, I mean, I know I can't document it or say, this is what happened. But I mean, I know there were a lot of deals that happened because, there was a mention, there were things that were in the works, I would imagine. But then, if I wrote about it positively, that would sort of, help someone to get a deal. It was a Billboard, so we can pivot off of that, and says you're legitimized or whatever. So a lot of deals came out of the journalism. A lot of artists got discovered. Because I like to sort of nominate people that aren't really the number one or in the top 10 or the hugest thing, and a lot of them got deals because of the writing. It helped. It definitely helps. Because of the nature of the magazine and what's said of it and who sees it.
What are the interviews that you did from that period that you remember most fondly? Because you obviously interviewed a lot of big rap stars. So are the ones that stick out in your memory?
I think one of the ones is LL Cool J. I interviewed him, before, when he had the 12 inches. I Knew the Beat was out on the red label Def Jam imprint. He wasn't a major artist. I mean, he wasn't the superstar we know him now. He was just a kid trying to get on. And he came to my brother's office. He had an office on 7th Avenue and 53rd Street, which is down. And he was coming in later. I said, can I use the office for this interview? So LL came up there. We did the interview. It was a great interview. And at the time, CBS had just Columbia Records, CBS, Sony Music. They had signed the deal with Def Jam, and he didn't know where Columbia was. He says, "Where's CBS Records?" I said, "Oh, it's up the street that way." So after that, we walked over there, and he saw the Black Rock building, and he went up and said hello to his new executive friends, and I went on my way. So that was good. And then another one was, I think, Slick Rick. We did an interview up at CBS Records. And, Rick talked badly about every other rapper. He called them all roaches. They were, it was just like, he was just, at that interview, I had to really go back and, talk to some people and, see if I could even print it, because it was just kind of disparaging of a lot of people, but that was Rick,
Yeah.
I mean, and there are a lot of, I got to think back. There's so many. I did an interview with KRS-One and BDP for their first album. I wanted to just get a little biographical information from him and, how the songs were written. We talked for like 3 hours. KRS-One just wouldn't shut up, so it was great. And that's one of the few tapes of interviews that I still have.
Hold on to that, please.
Maybe get it to you guys.
Yeah,
we would love that.
Havelock, we wouldn't say no.
Well, that was a great interview, and very memorable because I was getting hungry, thirsty, but I just wanted to hear more what he was going to say, because he just was very interesting.
Yeah. He's a really bright and interesting man, isn't he? He's
totally. I mean, a lot of opinions on a lot of different things that I was really surprised. Yeah.
If you're talking about audio interviews, maybe this is the moment when we can talk about the week's new audio interview. Now, we mentioned Salt-N-Pepa, and they were a huge influence on the great Missy Elliott. So I'm going to ask Jasper to tell us about this audio interview with Missy.
Yeah, definitely. This is Missy Elliott talking to Sarah Scribner in around probably late 1997. So Super Duper Fly has come out and she's being interviewed, and I think it's backstage because intermittently you can sort of overhear like stage calls and stuff. Can X and Y kind of come to the stage for sound check or whatever it is. But yeah, it's great. I mean, it's the interview that we've added, it's kind of in 3 parts because Sarah Scribner talked to Missy first, and then Timbaland, and then Magoo separately. The Missy part is about half an hour long and it makes up the main chunk of it, but there's like 10 minutes with Tim and like 10 minutes with Magoo as well. So it's just interesting at that point because like she's just broken through as a solo artist, having already had success as a producer. And she's talking about her early life, and the interview starts with her kind of talking about how she and her mum had to escape her abusive dad, so it's pretty tough. And then how she used to like sing to her dolls and stuff, so even like as a kid she was really definitely wanting to perform, and how she was in the group Sister, and how she developed her creative process and her rapping style. And that's what the first clip is about, her rapping style. So let's have a listen to that.
Me, I'm super fly, super duper fly, super duper fly.
But I guess what made me develop my style was just me, being the only child, and I used to play in the room by myself. So I wasn't never really a radio holic. You know, most of the time I used to try to make up stuff myself that made me different from everybody else. And by me not listening to the radio, I didn't know what was hot to be able to mimic it. So I think that's what made my style different, because I wasn't listening to the radio and trying to copy somebody else.
When the rain hits my window, I take in me and Timbaland. Ooh, we sang a jangle. We so tight that you get our styles tangled.
I mean, yeah, she is inimitable, and at that point, like, just the way that she's rapping on Super Duper Fly, and obviously the sound of Super Duper Fly, thanks to her collaboration with Timbaland, is just astonishing. I mean, we were listening to it yesterday again, and it's just such an amazing record.
It was the future.
Yeah, it was the future, wasn't it? I mean, I have this memory, funny enough, we mentioned Nelson George earlier, and I was in New York, and I think it was the Ralph J. Gleason Awards thing, and I went to it, and I met Nelson for the first time there, and he just said to me, I don't know, he said, "Have you heard the Missy Misdemeanor Elliott album?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And then it was sent to me, like literally like a couple of days later, and it just absolutely, blew me away. And every time I go back to it, it's still the sound of the future, right? I mean, those two, Missy and Timbaland working together. I mean, one of the great creative partnerships, I think. Yeah. Anyway, back to you, Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, so it's actually funny because when she's talking about her rapping style, Sarah Scribner goes, having asked a question about her style, what Sarah meant was her fashion style. Yes. And so she's like, actually, I was hoping to ask you about, how you dress and stuff. So that the next clip is about that. It follows on pretty immediately from the first one.
I drive through your hood and I hit them with the I slap them with the high.
The other people try to look as nice as possible. And I try to keep it like your homegirl from around the way. Like one of your friends around the way. I don't try to outdress myself, or I just try to keep it where somebody at home could say, "Dang, that could be me," or she make me feel like, it's real, because people don't always go out dressed up in gowns, or people don't always go out dressed up in diamonds. But the way I come out, you can always find somebody just in some jeans or a jacket.
Shit, no shit, I thought you hadn't noticed the way I roll this Dutch, Niggas love my style too much. Duck, here comes the shot, bang bang, drop. Me and Timbaland like hot, taking over blocks.
I mean, Havelock, do you remember the impact of Missy and how you experienced that? Was your first awareness of her?
Yeah, I mean, I know Missy, when she was doing the collaborations with, Bad Boy and that kind of thing. She was a rapper. And she had this thing, hickey hickey yeah, and it was cool, but I didn't know what was beneath that, So we sort of waited, and this record came out, and it was just like, wow, that's what Missy, that's what she's doing, because I thought she would have been just a rapper, but Missy is beyond that. Missy sings, she does the writing, she raps, obviously. It's just everything. I mean, she's larger than life, literally. Every other, like she was saying, female rappers have to have this certain look, going to the gowns and, makeup, all that stuff. She didn't do any of that. I mean, but, in the video, she created a style. She didn't play down her size. She played it up, what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, look at me. This is how you should move to my music. This is how, I'm going to make you notice me, that kind of thing. It was just kind of it was all just creative and all different and all like makes you go, wow. Even today, those videos still look fresh and different and unique.
And that people like Lizzo followed on from that in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think definitely there was a place that women are still having a hard time just being who they are. They have to fit into a certain slot to be an artist. And Missy definitely opened the doors for all of that to occur.
Even if she and Tim had done nothing other than Super Duper Fly, we would be talking about them, I think. But the fact they went on to make several more really radical records, I mean, like Work It and Get Your Freak On. I mean, they're just nothing sounded like that.
It was just fresh energy. I mean, the sounds. I mean, it was just beaming from some space age vessel. It was just he just took the energy of the dance floor and just fused it with this space age sound. When I first interviewed him, I mentioned that it sounded a bit like jungle, and he was like, "What's jungle?" He wasn't aware of that.
No.
So I mean, it was just a mind that
genius, just absolute genius,
genius, man.
I'd be nice to we've got a short clip of Tim speaking. We've got time to play it, Jasper. So
sure, let's listen to it.
So this is from the same time, obviously, probably in the same week that Sarah's interviewing Missy.
I think it's probably in the same room. I think like Missy goes off to do sound check, and I think Tim comes in and she collars him for a couple of questions.
She caught him.
I told people I was gonna change radio. I told them. And
what they say when you said that?
Yeah, there's like some people didn't believe, but I changed it. Everybody's doing it, from Janet, from some for the people, everybody's doing it. Trying to, do the articulates with the drums, but it don't work that way. Anybody, I mean, they hear it. That's why I want you to think it's something of the ear. It's something that you hear, but it's not done that way. There's a lot to it. It's more than just boom, boom, boom. There's more to it than that. It's like a whole different process.
Wonderful.
Great. I mean, you mentioned the space age stuff. I mean, I think with the image, because Missy talks about doing the music video for "Sock It to Me" as well in the interview, and like that's like a whole different scene. It's like set in space, and they're wearing these space suits and stuff, and it's like she just really didn't give a fuck. I mean, she was like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it, and it doesn't matter like what I she had just had a very, very clear vision of what she wanted and what she was up for doing, and how she wanted to kind of just explore the different things that she was doing. It's just great.
I just think that Missy's a great writer, and her songs are terrific in themselves. But just the collaboration with Timbaland, fusing those beats, that energy with her worldview, it's just so unique, so fantastic stuff. I mean, it's like I'm speechless when it comes to her music. It's just you just listen to it and marvel.
Yeah.
The sounds, you hear something new a lot. You play those tracks, you still hear new things in there, things buried in the mix. Yeah, he just throws in there.
I mean, I loved The Real World. There was a little strange kind of backlash against. There was sort of people couldn't really handle the sort of cyberpunk thing that was going on and the extreme futurism of that record. And I couldn't really understand. I still think it's pretty remarkable. Yeah, I mean, obviously she went on to have she had bigger hits than came off of The Real World and a few bigger than Get Your Freak On and Work It. And then they eventually sort of separated and went their different ways. I think Timbaland made some, other extraordinary records. The Aaliyah records are phenomenal. I mean, More Than a Woman is still one of the wildest records I've ever heard. And Cry Me a River, the Justin Timberlake thing, is an extraordinary pop record. Have you followed Timbaland through his career beyond Missy
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I first heard about Timbaland when he did Genuine, a Pony, which I thought was just like, who did that? It was just like, it just had this sound that nobody was doing. And it was, I wanted to know who the producer was. And it was Timbaland. That was, I think, one of his first records. And then the Elliott thing came out. That I paid attention to that. The stuff with Jay-Z. He just has a way of just harness the energy that was happening then. There was a lot of dance music happening then. And just to stand in stark contrast to the harder gangster rap, that kind of thing. He just stood out. Everything he made stands out. With different sounds, different feels, different energy.
Since you mentioned Genuine, I mean, I think, why don't we just hear what Magoo has to say about the Virginia scene that they sort of all came out of? Because it's such a fascinating little story, really.
It really is. And I mean, also, he mentions in that how he was in SBI, Surrounded by Idiots, with Timbaland and Pharrell Williams, which is like a crazy, like... Right. The fact that both of those came out of this group that now, I mean, nobody, Surrounded by Idiots I don't think even have a Wikipedia page, but it's like, it's crazy. So yeah, let's listen to him talk about Virginia Beach.
What you got basically in the music industry is you have people from New York, LA, you name it, a lot of major cities that have had record deals. And in general, when you go to different parts of the country, people tend to be the same, as far as slang. Not everybody's the same, but they generally think in the same way. But you didn't have in the music business before, Genuine and Missy and Timbaland and myself, getting what Missy did was so special is an idea from someone from Virginia about what hip-hop was and also what R&B was. It's brand new. I mean, if you bring out maybe, 2-3 other people from our area, you'll get that same uniqueness. I mean, we hear it all the time.
Timbaland, the funky beat maker. I be rocking US and all of Jamaica. I can make you dance and shake your butt and wiggle. When it's hot outside, I eat popsicles.
I wanted to actually just link from Timbaland and Magoo. Obviously, they were an act. I remember first hearing about them in connection with Atlantic Records, funnily enough. And so Tashan have just published this enormous coffee table book, 75 Years of Atlantic Records. And I have no doubt that, Timbaland and Magoo are somewhere in there.
Hope so.
And so, just to talk briefly about Atlantic as a label, and I'm just going to start by quoting from a review of Charlie Gillett's book Making Tracks, which came out in 1974. So there was a special in Melody Maker. Jerry Wexler of Atlantic Records was in London in early 75, and Max Jones interviewed him, and then in conjunction with that was this review of Charlie's book by Rob Partridge. And he starts off and says, record labels seldom have fans. Few people can identify with, say, RCA or CBS, whose corporate images have the kind of anonymity befitting giant business structures. But Atlantic is different. There was a time when the Atlantic label on a record was, in itself, a guarantee of the music. And then a couple of paragraphs later, he says, but why Atlantic? And he tries to sort of explain what was special about the company, and in the end, as Gillett concludes, it really was about the guys who founded it and ran it and signed so many extraordinary artists. And so wanted to just kind of put Atlantic Records in context with you, Havelock, and ask you, how you view the legacy of a label like that, because it's not all, it's not all kind of positive. One has to kind of look back and say, well, hang on a minute, some of those contracts were iniquitous. So, all of that stuff. But when you think about Atlantic Records, what would be your take on that label?
I mean, I think of them in terms of the black music that they put out. I mean, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin. When I was a youngster in Guyana, I mean, like I was saying, my father used to send me back records and, music, 45 records. And that Atlantic logo was one that I recognized from probably the earliest age. I mean, as you were reading from that quote, I don't really, I knew the RCA logo with the Nipper the dog, that kind of thing. But Atlantic's, that logo is one that I recognized from that 45 spinning immediately. And it was the stuff they did with Stax. That was just, to this day, that's my favorite. It just tracks with the Franklin. Even Chic. I mean, Chic is a group that was on Atlantic, and and that sound was one that dominated the 70s and 80s, and and hip hop came from one of Chic's songs. Good times.
I found this really good piece of you interviewed Rick Rubin for Musician May '87.
Oh,
your opening paragraph is kind of very amusingly sort of about this is black pop owes a lot of its greatest hits to the Jewish American independent record label phenomenon. Herman Lubinsky and Savoy, High Weiss and Old Town, Lieber and Stoller and Redbird, Phil Spector and Phillies, Led and Phil Chess. What characterized these early associations was the fact that the ownership was Jewish and the talent was black. That tradition continues into the 80s, but things are a little different. Def Jam, one of the few refuges from scandal and disturbance in the world of pop labels, not only has black and Jewish co-ownership in Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin, but records both black and Jewish artists, which of course was the Beastie Boys. So I really like I really love the way this first paragraph, you sort of turn that story around there. Yeah.
Man, I mean, thanks for reading that back. I didn't see that story in ages. Wow. I wrote that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely part of tradition, the whole duoism and, the whole Jewish black collaboration. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely part of a tradition.
Yeah. But I love the way the term Def Jam is kind of both sides on both sides, which is really amusing. So that's great. I loved it.
I forgot I wrote that. Thanks for reading that back.
Yeah, I mean, it's for people of our sort of vintage, there is a nostalgic attachment to labels that I guess, younger people, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what Jasper would think about this because I don't think there is the same attachment to labels or companies. It's all a bit homogenous because everything's kind of digital anyway.
Yes, so it's all ones and zeros.
You don't go and buy the record and bring it back and put the Atlantic label on the turntable.
Read it.
Yeah. Jasper's about to put you in your place firmly. I
well, I don't know. Actually, I think that we're in the era now of the mega label,
right,
and also of the self-distribution. So you kind of have there are still smaller groups or more than labels, people pay attention to collectives, maybe, of musicians and artists, where the musicians are determining how they want their stuff to appear. I'm thinking of things like PC Music, A.G. Cook, Charlie XCX, that whole space where, I would go out and listen to any artist that was associated with PC Music or the Steam Down Collective in London, the London jazz scene very much. I don't know that the label as an entity still has the same meaning. So I think you're probably right on that front because in the end, the distribution is always taken on by, one of the big record companies that have kind of bought everything up. But I still think that that sense of that is kind of inescapable within music as a whole because musicians always want to coalesce around other musicians that they're interested in, and listeners will pick up on that as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, Atlantic it became a huge company because it adapted to the times. And, you know, I interviewed Jerry Wexler a couple of times, and he was just a true music man. And I think if he had been running the company, it probably would have relocated to Muscle Shoals and just become a soul label. And I think he had some issues with Ahmet casting his net so much wider. But there's just no doubt we wouldn't be probably talking about Atlantic in the same way if they hadn't signed Led Zeppelin and Cream and Buffalo Springfield and Yes. Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting. I, in preparing for this, I saw yesterday a news item about Atlantic now in, March 2025. It's now, if I understood it correctly, being run by the son of Lucian Grange, who is like the most important man in the music universe, and probably the richest. And his son Elliott is running Atlantic. And you just mentioned Charlie XCX, and she is an Atlantic artist, as are Coldplay and Bruno Mars and a bunch of and Ed Sheeran. So I mean, Atlantic
Jesus Christ, Ed Sheeran and Coldplay.
Yeah, but
you're giving me a nervous breakdown here.
I know, but just think about the revenue those artists generate. Which does permit Atlantic to sign more interesting cutting edge artists, I would say. I mean, are you still sort of tuned into the machinations of the record industry enough to sort of like care what Atlantic means in 2025, or is it not that interesting to you now?
I'm not that tuned in. I mean, I'm totally in a different space in terms of looking at things. Yeah. I mean, if something's big enough, I definitely hear about it or know about it, but I'm not. I mean, a lot of the artists that Jasper mentioned, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. That's
too.
Your prerogative. It's kind of my prerogative too. There's only so much you can keep up with. If you try to keep up with everything, you end up like drowning under all of it. I think.
It's funny when I was writing, I said I will always have my finger on the pulse of the culture. I will always know what's going on. I would always know who the hottest artist or newest artist is, and and as the years go by, that falls off. Go on with this fall.
And it'll fall off for you, Jasper. It'll fall off for you.
Never.
I think it's an important. I think it's an important point that pop music's one of the few art forms which is by a particular generation for a particular generation and best written about by the same generation.
That's right.
Is there any new stuff? Doechii, for example. Have you listened to Doechii at all?
Haven't. I haven't.
You should. She's great. I mean, we were just talking about female rappers and stuff.
Thanks for the recommendation. I will check it out.
The Tiny Desk concert, the NPR Tiny Desk concert that Doechii did is like among the best they've ever done, in my view, and it's just like
I've got to check it out.
Breathtakingly good.
Raise up, chicks up, put your dicks up, get your dicks up, put your motherfucking dicks up. Put 'em up. They suck, that's tough, nigga. Pay up, get your raise up, put 'em motherfucking princess. Who she mean she freaky cunnilingus, Dalai Lama, don't she cooler than a fan, but she get hotter than a sauna. Take a trip out to Japan and I tsunami her vagina, wind it down a Benihana. I'm the new whip Madonna, I'm the trap crazy. I don't know what type of motherfucking crack they on. I'm like Carrie Bradshaw with a back brace.
Why don't you tell our listeners, Havelock, what's keeping you out of trouble these days? What are you doing?
I mean, now I do a lot of culinary stuff. I'm a professional cook, and Amy
Linden was telling us.
I bake nice things. I create some nice platings of things, and I facilitate parties and do things for people. Send it through the mail, whatever. Yeah, that's what I do. A lot of food.
Hey, JJ, do you want to come over here at the end of May and cater for my wedding? I'm getting married at the end of May, and we're looking for a caterer, and you're my man.
Yeah. Hey, that may be too big of a job for this big guy here. I do smaller things. So you're getting married. That's great.
Isn't it great? Never too late.
Congratulations.
And
never too late.
There's a huge budget for a chef. I've heard.
What's your budget?
5-star accommodation, fly over first class. I mean, that's what he was saying yesterday. So, but have you got recipes like that you can send to? I mean, he likes to link to your recipes from the podcast.
I put a lot of things on Facebook. There's a lot of nice pictures of cakes and dishes on Facebook. I put a few things up there. Not everything, but yeah.
So do you do a lot of baking?
A lot of baking, yes. In fact, I'm going to be baking some key lime pie squares later today.
Wow.
Ooh. Have they started the Great American Bake Off yet? And if not, why not? And if they haven't, you should host it. Do you know the Great British Bake Off show?
Oh, yeah, I watch it on Netflix.
You watch it, okay.
I love that show.
Yeah. Well, how about, why isn't there an American one?
It's a great amalgam. I'm sure it's coming. We buy everything.
It's been going for about 15 years now. You'd think it'd be there already.
I mean, I think that show, it's a great amalgam of people.
Yes.
It's not just from one sector. I love it.
I mean, I have no interest in baking, but I love the people they get on and the way they interact. You know, they're the best of British.
I'm just looking at Havelock's Facebook page, and there's some delicious looking stuff there. I can tell you.
Okay. I'm going to be in New York in June, July. Can I come and have some key lime pie?
Sure, hit me up.
Save
Absolutely.
some for Jasper.
I have a great working freezer.
Oh, fantastic!
Keep it cold for you.
Guys, do you want to just to tell us about 2 or 3 pieces you've added to the library? And as I said earlier, Havelock, if there's anything that strikes a chord with you, jump in and comment. So, Mark, have you got anything for us?
This.
Yeah, well,
I'm enjoying this.
Good, I hope so.
I mean, just hearing the old things and seeing them aggregated there, I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Oh, great.
This is the wonderful Jim Farber. You must know Jim.
Absolutely.
Who's a friend of Rock's Back Pages in a big way.
Wonderful critic.
He was interviewing, among others, this is Larry Fast. This is for Rolling Stone, 1980. And it's a very un-Jim Farber piece, unlike him, because it's about the rise of digital technology in instruments and keyboards. And Larry Fast was the guy who played keyboards on like Peter Gabriel's albums and things like that, and was a pioneer of the user of. This is all about synclaviers and fairlights. It's that kind of thing. And Larry Fast says, anything in a digital machine becomes pretty much as easy or as hard to program as anything else. So the very complex things are close to the easy things. It's just that at some point you have to draw the line on how expensive that beast is going to be. And when you get some real fast 16-bit microprocessors, which are on the horizon right now, there's going to be a big price break. In the long run, I don't think there's anything in theory that an analog machine can do that a digital can't. I think he's really wrong about that. And the revival of of analog synths in recent years actually points to that. You know, digital's great for certain things, but there's nothing beats the warmth and weight of a mini Moog or
vintage.
Agree.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I used to write for a magazine called Modern Recording and Music back in the day. Yeah, I did a bunch of reviews for them. The late great magazine that was focused more on like home recording and smaller studios, and you would write reviews for them. But you would just talk about the music, of course, but you would talk more about the technical sound. You know, how it was recorded. You know, is anything lacking, that kind of thing. So I was really into the technology of the time, and I was actually working as a recording
cool.
a place called Master Disc.
Oh, right.
I used to work at. They made a lot of records.
Bernie Ludwig, is that right? Was that Bernie Ludwig?
Bob Ludwig, who just retired. He retired last year from Gateway Sounds, which was in Maine, which he opened up a few years ago. He just retired this year. Yeah, I mean Bob, we used to call him Big Time Bob. You know, he was he was the guy doing all the stuff. He did Nightfall, all that. So but I was definitely into the technical stuff. And Jim Farber doing that piece is very much, I don't know he was that technical in terms of the stuff he knew about synths and things. Anyway, go ahead.
What was the magazine it was Modern Sound and Recording?
Modern Recording and Music.
Modern Recording and Music.
Yeah,
we'll note that.
Long defunct.
Well, we'll see if we've got any copies lurking in the archive.
I wish I could find it, man. I would love to see those pieces again. Oh man.
We'll do our best.
We'll let you know if we unearth any. Mark, have you got anything else?
Maureen Cleave on Wee Willie Harris. Willie Harris was a very early English rock and roller. By this time, this is the Evening Standard 1963, he had been reduced to basically touring Europe whilst performing in a tiger-striped dress. She says, He's a little man from Bermondsey with a small mouth and a small, neat nose set immediately above a sad, pale face. He has the amused, slightly distant look of a boy who has woken up at a party in Belgravia, knowing perfectly well he went to bed in Aldgate the night before. He speaks quietly with no visible motion of the lips. He says, if I hadn't gone into this business, I'd be getting up, going to work, coming home to have my dinner, going back to work, coming home to have my tea, having a wash and going to bed so I could get up at 7 a.m. It's messing about like that, said Wee Willie sadly, that what ruins people's lives.
Brilliant.
That's again, Maureen Cleave, who's absolutely one of my favourite writers. This is 1963.
Good stuff.
It's fantastic.
Well, he was very wee, presumably.
He was fairly yes.
Fairly wee. You're apparently, Havelock, obviously we're not in person with you, but you're not very wee. You're apparently extraordinarily tall. Is this true?
It's true.
It is true. Facts. Yeah, we just wanted to establish that. So how tall are you, if you don't mind?
6'5".
6'5". Okay.
Yeah.
Lastly, Ellie Greenwich is a great songwriter with Jeff Barry,
her husband,
husband, to Jane Hyle, hit parader. This is 1965, how to be a songwriter. She says, as far as melodies are concerned, we don't try to write anything teen-orientated, he said, waving quote marks. We don't say, a teenager will like this melody. The basic things are the simplicity of the words. Very understandable, very simple, very basic. Boy, girl, meeting, breaking up, in love, pleading, be my love, be my baby, I love you. Just very simple, basic things. So that's pop music.
Well,
that's pop music, definitely.
Made them a lot of money, those
That's a lot of songs
things.
there.
Yeah, a lot of songs, exactly.
You fall in love, you break up, and you get back together majestically again.
Beautiful.
They're all your songs.
That's my lot. Jasper, have you got anything?
I've got a couple of things. First of which is a piece I found this in a copy of The Wire, and then William kindly added it. It's Codwo Eshen writing in September 1993 about the Far Side new rap masters, and he writes, one of the 7,000 or 8,000 things I love about hip-hop is its elegance, its nuanced restatement of youthful black aesthetics in a world which confidently assumes no such thing exists. De La Soul, A Tribe Called Quest, KMD, the debut album of all these groups project a hermetic, abstruse, private complexity as if each had rethought history, philosophy, sexuality and style in a language they weren't about to decode for even a second. Never forget the puzzlement, resistance and almost helpless misreading which greeted De La Soul. The Far Side provoked the same response. Scanning an old music paper a while ago, I came across now vanished white geeks, they must be giants, discussing De La Soul's This Is a Recording. Witness the giant conclusion. De La Soul couldn't know what deep waters they were getting into. If it was worth bothering to exhume their arsehole corpses, we could revive them and force them to listen to the Far Side's classic debut, Bizarre Ride to the Far Side, and take pictures of their little rotting green heads exploding in mind-blasted disbelief, because there has never been a group like the Far Side in the history of reproducible sound. It's just electric writing. And
great writing, yeah.
I actually saw the Far Side last year in San Diego with our colleague Paul, and they were still great. It was a great show. Really, really, really cool.
They're one of the great lyricists from LA.
Yeah.
With lyrical groups.
I dream of fairy tales, I think of me and Shelly. See, she's my type of hype, and I can't stand when brothers tell me that I should quit chasing and look for something better.
The other piece is David Toop in the New York Review of Books, 12th of June 2024, reviewing Andre 3000's flute album, New Blue Sun. And it's really cool to read and interesting to have David Toop's perspective on it, given that he himself is an experimental composer, musician, flute player. And he situates the record within a broader history of black exotica and ambient music, including like Alice Coltrane and Sun Ra and Don Cherry and Pharoah Sanders. And he writes, to some degree, New Blue Sun sits within this tradition and should be applauded for that. Striking out for the unknown, it eschews the unforgiving crunch of contemporary digital music in favor of all that floats and drifts. And, it's just, I don't know, did you listen to the flute album that Andre 3000 put out last year?
I haven't heard it.
It is interesting. It's obviously nothing like Outkast, which is interesting in itself.
Yeah. No flutes there.
And I think it was a bit divisive in terms of how you know, people didn't necessarily respond to the sonics of the album in the way that they respond to the sonics of Outkast, should we say.
Absolutely.
But listening to him talk about it, Andre 3000, I've seen a couple of interviews with him where he just basically says, look, this is what I felt like doing, and it's given me a lot of peace to play the flute. He's got this huge collection of like traditional flutes from around the world, and he's dedicated himself to just learning how to play them. And there's something incredibly cool and beautiful about him doing that and just putting it out there.
There's something very charming about him, always has been.
Yes.
But he was a very, very bad Jimi Hendrix in a very, very bad Jimi Hendrix biopic, which came out a few years ago, which claimed that what was obviously Dublin was meant to be Soho, except every pub had Murphy's signs hanging outside.
Hey, that's biopics for you. Come on. I do want to say, I thought he was really great in the Sly Stone documentary, Andre.
Yes.
Really one of the best interviews in that. Did you see that, Havelock? Were you too busy making key lime pie?
Busy baking.
Busy baking. Yeah. No
Fair
time,
enough.
even for a Sly documentary. Well, it's worth seeing. I'm
it's
sure you'd
really
love
worth
it.
seeing. Yeah,
it is
really
great.
worth seeing.
It is great. And also, I love the Run DMC documentary as well. I don't know if you saw that. No, you just did. That's it. Music's a thing of the past for you, isn't it?
No, not at all. I mean, Run DMC, who did
there's
that?
a great 2-part Run DMC. I think it's 2 parts, at least 2 parts, maybe more. Doc on whatever Prime, Netflix. I can't remember which it is.
I think it's one of the
or Apple or Disney or
yeah.
One of them.
One of them.
Find that.
This is the problem now. You start watching something and then you forget what you were watching it on, and you have to check every single one of them. Yeah,
it's very true.
Very swift question, Havelock. Do you have any memories of the blackout in New York in 1977?
Of course,
I do.
Of course. I mean, what do I know about it? I know. It definitely helped. Some people say it helped to advance hip hop.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Grandmaster Caz has got this great story about they're playing a park jam in the Bronx, and suddenly the street lights start going out. They think it's because they've wired up. Because people used to wire up, get the electricity from the street lamp.
You just rig it up.
Yeah, and he thought we personally have done the streetlights in. Mm-hmm. The next thing you knew, everyone was running towards him to steal their gear. They managed to get their gear away, and he says the next day everyone had turntables, everyone had amplifiers. So that's the same story that what you're saying.
Yeah, so it could have contributed to the growth because, like you said, that stuff is expensive. And that was an opportunity to just increase your arsenal of gear.
Wonderful.
Anyway, great.
I think that brings us to the end of episode 100 and where are we? 98.
Jesus Christ!
of the Rockstar Pages podcast. So thank you, Havelock Nelson, for joining us today.
Guys.
You've been a wonderful guest. Anyone listening out there, do hunt down a copy of Bring the Noise online. It is you can find it, and it's one of the hip hop Bibles, the 1991 book that Havelock wrote with Michael Gonzales. If you enjoy the Rockstar Pages podcast, please follow it on whichever platform you use. Give us a review if you can. Please also visit Rockstar Pages itself. Check to see if your local library or academic institution subscribes, and if not, please suggest they take a free trial of the world's largest archive of music journalism. We'll be back in a fortnight with veteran sound and cue contributor Phil Sutcliffe, Father Phil, as some of us know him.
Father of the Chapel.
Father of the Chapel. Yes, Father of the Chapel. We'll explain that in a couple of weeks. On that note, it is farewell and adieu from me and goodbye from Mark Jasper and our very special guest, Havelock Nelson. And so all together in imperfect harmony, goodbye.
Cheerio.
That concludes episode 198 of the Rockstar Pages podcast. Many thanks to special guest Havelock Nelson. Find Havelock's writing on Rockstar Pages and his cooking on Facebook. The hosts were Barney Hoskins and Mark Pringle, and it was co-hosted and produced by Jasper Murison Bowie. The Rockstar Pages podcast is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find thousands of articles, as well as hundreds of full-length audio interviews, at rockstarpages.com.